Okay, one more time. So, hey, my name is Peter Howard, and I collect, host, maintain a database of sorts. And I was recently asked in our Patreon Discord to do an explanation of some of the stuff in there. And I did not know what I was biting off when I started. So I've done an overview video, and I've done a video for each positional tab except for wide receiver. And wide receiver happens to be the biggest. Also, I just found out I'm late for a podcast, so that's cool. But we're going to do it. We're going to finish it. If you're wondering what I'm talking about and where to find it, pinned to my Twitter timeline, as you can see right there, neat, is a link to my database. You just, where is it? Click this link, it sends you to this Patreon post. Don't panic, it's free, you just click on it. You don't have to give me money or nothing. And you go straight to the database. Now, the reason you go straight to the database is because actually smart people have done a lot of work to help me be able to do this. So, why would I charge money for, stuff other people are doing? But there's a list of them in the sources tab. These guys are all heroes. They're wizards. They're true nerds. And there's also a lot of other information about the various stats that, by and large, we're all talking about with prospect evaluation into the NFL. So here's a list of who actually made them, if I know it, or at least where I heard about it first, and what they actually are. And if you're interested in the actual formulas, because my description doesn't do it justice, or I miss it, or something like that, if you go to the Formulas and Results tab, you can literally see what sometimes there's R-squared values of testing I've done, but you can definitely see the formula you can't. At the end here, so you can see the literal calculation I'm using. Hopefully that'll get it done, or hit me up at Pahowdy. Alright, so wide receivers. What's in there? It's actually the most in the wide receivers tab, because it's the one I play with the most, because I keep finding useful stuff. So let's go big screen here, and I'll try and discuss the basic layout of it, but also some of the abbreviations, which all come from my head, which means I messed up and no one can understand them. Hey, internet people, I think I forgot to say that this time. Anyway, moving on. So, basically at the front of the database, you have what I think are the most relevant stats, the ones we talk about the most, like draft round, draft position, average hit rate. That's all at the front of the wide receiver and running back tab. You also have some models I created, which you can feel free to ignore, because I'm just a little fake nerd pretending that I know stuff, right? Breakout ages I find the most relevant for wide receivers specifically, so they're all at the front. As with every other tab, it quickly goes into counting stats. Now, most of these should be relatively easy to understand, because they're just totals for their college career. So how many years did they collect stats for? 3, in the case of Rondell Moore, apparently. How many games did he actually play? 20 over the course of the time he was in college. All the raw stats come from College Football Reference. Again, the link's in the source tab. You should definitely check that out. Receptions, receiving, or just yards, actually, total yards, yards per reception, receptions per game. I hope all of these are fairly self-explanatory. College Dominator, I've actually got a separate video on what College Dominator is, as well as Breakout Age, so I recommend those, I guess. Check out my YouTubes, yay. But there are some stats in here that the abbreviations aren't pretty well known, like YTMPPA, apparently I've got written here. It's yards per team pass attempt. So per team attempt, how many yards was that player gaining? It's a fairly useful stat in a variety of ways. I'm not going to delve into R-squared scores right now, but it's one that I'm recently investing more time tracking in for all positions, but most specifically at running back and wide receiver. And so it's become a larger feature in the 2021 update. So it's got an abbreviation. Now, I noticed way too late that yards per team attempt and yards per team pass attempt, it's really difficult to notice that little P. You see right here, you've got yards per team pass attempt. That's actually screwed me up a few times while I was trying to do stuff. So yeah, unfortunately a little too late to change it, but that's the abbreviation. This is just for all team attempts, both rushing and passing. Yards per team pass attempt. Just pass attempts, right? Honestly, so far in my early testing, I'm finding by pass attempt to be far more useful than per team attempt. But everything's changing, and I'm just trying to track anything that people might be interested in while looking at NFL prospects, so it's in there. I do a lot of averages, especially wide receiver, where I'm adjusting a lot more stats because I'm more confident that it's useful and relevant and should be done. The typical average for conference is every player from that conference in the last 5 years at that position with 30 or more touches. So it's different if you're looking at running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends, and the conference they're from. Other than that, that's a standard average. If I'm using a different type of average, like the average for successful players in the NFL, or average for players who their team's wide receiver or running back or tight end won, the highest scoring player on that team, then it should be noted in the header. The typical average is just all players at that position from that conference with 30 or more touches over the last 5 years. So, and when it's an adjustment stat like this, I'm showing you the yards above or below that conference average, in this case in yards per team pass attempt. I'm also doing breakout age and Dominator above average, or Dominator or market share above average. But in this singular section right here, that's yards per team pass attempt. So that's how those abbreviations work. And again, I'm doing that for a few. Like here, I'm using a team average. And you see in the heading, it says above team average, not conference average. So I'm using the same thresholds of the last 5 years, 30 or more touches at that position, but for the team instead of the conference. Some conferences, some teams have less history, so it's important to know, what I'm comparing them to in those columns, if you're interested in that stat at least. Dominator, I'm just going to assume everyone knows what Dominator is, and the formula is in the Formulas tab if you're not. And this is based on the individual year calculations. At the front of the database, I have their first year, their best year, their last year, or the highest. By best, I mean the highest Dominator rating, or their average throughout their career. College Dominator, which is listed earlier, is actually the average between their best and their last years, which is also why I started listing stats this way, because when you're comparing players or creating models or calculating things, you can't have stats where some players have them and some don't. Not everyone played at age 19, but everyone has a first, best, last, and average, right? Even if it's the same year. So that's why I'm listing most stats up the front of the database here by those denominators, first, best, last, average. If you scan further along, you'll see their stats broken down by the ages they played, because that's how I prefer to look at players. How did their career progress as they aged in college? But you might not like that, but that's what I like, so that's the way it is. There are some stats in here like DOA and YOA. Those are my kind of stats. Most of them I'm grouping in sections in the individual tabs under a section called Pahowdy Scores. They don't relate to anything else as far as I know. Like I have a production score, a combine score, I have a Dominator over average. These are things I find useful or interesting to look at for players. If they are the same name as something you're finding, like I'm sure there's a combine score out there or a teammate score for a breakout finder if nothing else, they're unrelated. This is why I'm calculating something, and that's why in the headers you'll see the descriptions are a lot more in depth, because one, I want to remember what I'm doing, and sometimes I forget because I don't have brains, but also so you know exactly or more exactly what it is, and you don't mistake like teammate score for whatever breakout finder is using, or combine score for whatever ESPN is using. I'm assuming they have a combine score. Or Kyle Lebrecht from the Dynasty Dummies, he has a combine score. As far as I know, it's unrelated. You can see the formulas I'm using in the formula tab, and it's under that section because it's something, as far as I know, it doesn't relate to a stat you'd see anywhere else. Not because it's original and unique and therefore better, just because I wanted to know something, and so I calculated it and I'm tracking it. There it is. And that's the basics. There are some others in here that might be confusing for those who are very new, like MS. Like MS yards, MS rushing yards, or attempts or receptions. If it has MS, that stands for market share, which is just a fancy way of saying percentage. So the percentage of the team's rushing yards or receiving yards. That's all MS means, and that's why it's, as you see at the top, called an MS database, because I originally started it because I wanted to track market share. Because, a lot of people were telling me breakout age and Dominator are important, and they're all based on market share, and I couldn't find it anywhere. That was the impetus behind starting this, and now it's my living, ever-running hell, obviously. Alright, some others that might be hard to understand. HASS under the Combine section. This stands for Height-Adjusted Speed Score. Weight-Adjusted Speed Score is next to it. Again, that's a fairly standard stat you'll see in a lot of places, so it's not under the Me section. I didn't invent it. I didn't create it. That's just, I found the formula, so I'm calculating it. Any mistakes in calculations, like my numbers differ from, like an actual website, it's my fault. Because I'm a pretend nerd who's learning math, I guess. And I can make mistakes easily. If you see something like that, let me know, and I'll try and find out what's going on and fix it. Let's see, anything else in here? I think that's a pretty good overview. Most of the complicated abbreviations I went over, the new abbreviations I went over, and hopefully I'm giving you some insight into the way I create column headings, so it will make it a little more understandable when you see something new. That's just roughly the way I think about it. If you have any questions, though, anything doesn't make sense, yada yada yada, you can hit me up on Twitter at Pahowdy anytime. If I go back to the other screen, I think, yeah, look, it's even listed right under my chin there. Or on our Patreon Discord, if you happen to be in there. You don't have to be, obviously. I'm just trying to provide value back to a community I really appreciate, because it gives me a lot. That's why me and a whole bunch of other people are putting a lot of work into trying to track this and keep it explainable and understanding for all of us who are interested. We want to do better on a rookie draft, but we're not going to become expert statisticians, so we want to look at the numbers that the expert statisticians are actually talking about and say are useful, and so I need to be able to see them for that, and so I started collecting them, and a lot of people helped out, and this is the result, I guess. So yeah, I really appreciate you checking out the video or the database. If you do, make sure you go to that sources tab and call the people in there wizards and great people, because they are. So you should say that. And also, they know a lot of stuff. I'm learning, but they know a lot of stuff, and they can help us out with our rookie evaluations. So that's good, because we want to win more fantasy leagues. So yeah, there we are. I think that's all of it. Again, if you have any questions, I didn't explain it well enough, comments below, at me on Twitter. Always happy to talk about this stuff. Really appreciate it, and I will see you again next week. Wait, next week? Next video. Whenever I'm talking live on the internet again. And yeah, hope you have a good day. Thanks very much. Bye. Bye. I said goodbye. Okay, we're done. We're done now. I did all of the tabs. I'm very tired, and I'm late for a podcast. I changed my shirt between each one. I feel like that was an attempt at production value, right? No? Okay. Yeah. Appreciate it. Bye.